I will have completed my undergraduate degree in 2 years. I will be working for the company for 5 years. I will have finished writing my book by the end of the year. By the time I'm 30, I'll have saved enough to buy a house. When I retire, I will have traveled every continent. I will have completed the task by 6 in the evening. By the time the sun comes up, I will have finished my work. I will be working on this project for 2 hours until you get here. By the time my husband gets home from work, I will have washed the dishes, cleaned the bathroom, and vacuumed the living room. Next year, I will have finished my degree. By the time he gets home, he will have prepared dinner. Next month I will be working here for 10 years. Next month they will be married for 20 years. Next month we will have known each other for 30 years. Next month I will be living in this city for 40 years. Next month I will have this car for 10 years. Next year, I'll be working here for 10 years. When he comes, we will have finished the project. By the time I turn 30, I will have graduated from university. They will have moved into a new house by the end of the month. We will have reviewed all the material by the end of the week. I will have finished my book by the time you get home. By the time her husband gets home from work, she will have prepared dinner. We will have cleaned the whole house by the time our guests arrive. By the time his wife gets home, he'll have cut that lawn and trimmed the hedges. Students will have taken their exams and submitted their assignments by the end of the semester. By the age of 30, he will have traveled every continent. I will have completed my education by the end of the month. They will be at the airport by 6 this evening. We will have finished the project by the end of the week. He will be in bed by the time you get home. They will have gone on their honeymoon by the time we get back from vacation. By the end of the year I will have read all the books on my list. By the end of your final year, you will have decided which university you will attend. At the end of the month we will have moved into our new home. By the end of this year, I will have completed my undergraduate education. Next month, I'll be working at my current job for 2 years. I will retire for 15 years in 2025. My boss will be at his current job for 10 years next month. I will be graduating from university next year. By the end of the month they will have finished the project. Next month I will be working here for 5 years. At 6 this evening, he will be set aside for his trip. Next month we will have known each other for 10 years. I will have finished my homework by the time my parents come home. When I wake up, my alarm will go off at 7 a.m. I will have finished my report by 5 p.m. By the time I turn 30, I will have completed my diploma. By the end of next month I will be at my job for 5 years. This time next year I will have bought a new house. By the end of the year, I will have saved enough to go on vacation. By the time I'm 35, I will have overcome my fear of heights. I will have finished the project by Monday. We will have finished our exams by June. When the test comes, you will have learned all the material. By the time you arrive, I will have made all the necessary arrangements. She will have packed her bags and be ready to go by the time her plane takes off. Next year I will be working here for 10 years. In 2 hours, we'll be waiting in line for more than 4 hours. By the time the sun comes up, they'll be hiking for hours. By the time I return, you will have finished your work. By the time our families get home, we'll have cleaned the whole house. By the time you get here, the game will be over. By the time you get home, I'll have prepared dinner. By the time I finish this sentence, I will have written 50 examples of future perfect tense sentences. I will have finished the project at 6 o'clock. Next month they will be married for 10 years. In June I will be working here for 5 years. We will be living in this house for 2 years next month. By the time I should wake up, my alarm will have gone off. By the time I go to bed, I will have finished my work. By the time I turn 30, I will have completed my diploma. By the end of this year, I will be working at my current job for 5 years. By the time I'm 35, I'll have saved enough to buy a house. By the time I turn 40, I will have traveled all 7 continents. I'll be retired when I'm 65. By the time I arrive, they will have finished the job. I will have completed my diploma by the end of next year. We will be moving into our new home at the beginning of next month. They will have gone on vacation by the time I get home from work. By the time you arrive, I will have finished my report. I will have completed the task by 6 o'clock. They will have arrived in New York by then. We will be married for 10 years in June. They'll be waiting for 2 hours before we get there. By the time I finish this sentence, I will have written 50 next perfect tense sentences. By the time you finish reading this, I'll be long gone. I will be working at my current job for 2 years next month. We will be married for 10 years in June. They will have had their new baby for 2 weeks when we visit them. By the end of this year, I will be living in my new home for 6 months. When the sun rises tomorrow, I'll be driving for 12 hours straight. I'll be sleeping for 8 hours before you wake up. I'll be cooking dinner for an hour by the time you get home. By 2020, I will have retired for 5 years. By the time I'm 30, I'll have traveled every continent. In 10 years, I'll have forgotten what it felt like to be this young. By the end of the day, I will have finished my work. By the end of the week I will have completed all my tasks. In 2 hours I will have finished my lunch. When the sun goes down, I will have completed my journey. By the time he gets home, he will have prepared dinner. We will have finished the project by this time next week. They will be married for 10 years in June. We will be living in this house for 2 years in August. In May I will be driving for 6 years. He will have been working at the company for 3 years in January. In March he will have been playing the piano for 8 years. We will be living in this city for 5 years in October. I will have finished my work at 6 o'clock. They will have arrived in Paris by now. Next month I will be working here for 10 years. We will have finished the project by Monday. I will have finished the project by next week. We will have finished our exams by the end of the month. The company will be bankrupt by the end of the year. I'll be retired when I'm 60. By the end of the year they will have moved into a new home. We will have finished the project by the end of next week. Next month they will be married for 40 years. When I retire, I will have saved enough money. I will have graduated from university by May. I will have finished my novel by the end of the month. We will be moving into our new home by the end of the week. She will have given birth to her baby next month. They will be on their honeymoon by the end of the year. When I'm 60, I'll have retired from my job. We will have saved enough money to buy a new car next year. By the end of the day, he will have finished his painting. By the time you wake up, I will have run a marathon. Examples. I will have finished the project by 5 p.m. Next week, I will have finished my research paper. I will be 18 at the end of the month. By the time he gets home, I'll have cleaned the whole house. By the age of 21, he will have graduated from university. We'll have enough money to buy a new car by summer. I will have lost 10 kilos by the end of the month. The baby will be born by the time you get home. By the end of the week they will have moved into a new home. I will have finished my work at 6 o'clock. When he comes, we will have had dinner. By the time you arrive, they will have gone home. Next month we will be married for 10 years. I will have finished my license by the end of this year. By next week, I will have forgotten all that. I will have made all the necessary arrangements by tomorrow. I will have completed my undergraduate education by the end of the year. By next week, I will have finished reading the entire book. In 6 months, I will be working at my current job for 2 years. In a year, I will have traveled to at least 5 different countries. In 5 years, I hope to have bought a house. 10 years from now, I will have retired from my current career. We will have finished the project by the end of this month. When I retire, I will be working here for 5 years. Next week I will have taken the driver's license test 3 times. When the sun rises tomorrow, I will be on my way for my trip. They will be living in their new home for 2 months by June. We'll be planning our party for weeks. Tomorrow I will have submitted my application to the university. I will have completed my project by the end of the week. By the time I get home, you'll have finished your work. By the time you arrive, we will have celebrated our anniversary. They will have arrived at the airport by the time their flight takes off. By the time you wake up, I'll be at work. You'll be in bed by the time I get home. We will have finished our meal by the time the movie starts. By the time his train leaves, he will have packed his things. By the time they arrive, we will have tidied the house. By the age of 30, he will have traveled every continent. In June I will be working here for 10 years. In a few months, we will have met for 5 years. By the end of this year he will be living in New York for 6 months. He will be working at the company for 3 years until May. I will have finished the project at 1600. You will have finished your homework before you can watch TV. We will have cleaned the house before our guests arrive. I will have finished my book by the end of the week. By the time you arrive, I will have finished cooking dinner. I will be working at my current job for 5 years next month. By the end of this year, I will be living in my current apartment for 2 years. By the time I'm 30, I will have traveled all 7 continents. In 10 years I will have retired from my current job. When my kids grow up, I'll be married for 20 years. In 5 years, I will be working as a doctor for 10 years. By the time I turn 50, I will have been teaching for 30 years. In 20 years, I will be retired for 5 years. By the end of this year, I will have completed my undergraduate education. By next week, I will have finished reading the entire Harry Potter series. By the end of the month, I'll have saved enough to buy a new car. In 5 years I will have graduated from university and will be working full-time. In 10 years I will retire from my job and be living in a summer house. We will have finished our work by the end of the day. By the time the teacher arrives, the students will have taken the exam. By the time you arrive, the meeting will have started. I will have done my homework before watching TV. You will have cleaned your room before you go out to play. They will have prepared dinner before we get home. We will have packed our bags before we set off for our trip. I will have finished my own book before you finish yours. By the end of this year, I will be working here for 5 years. In 2 weeks I will have finished my novel. In 2 weeks I'll be living in this city for 10 years. Next month, I'll be married for 6 years. In 3 hours, I'll be driving for 8 hours. I will have finished the project by 5. He will have completed his education next year. By 2025, we will have visited every continent. By the time you reach 60, you will have retired. By the end of the year they will have learned English. When I retire, I will have worked here for 30 years. I will have finished my license by the end of the year. We will be moving into our new home next week. The company will be offered to the public by the end of the year. I will be 30 years old next month. I will have finished my homework by the time my parents come home from work. When the deadline comes, my project will be finished. I'll be working on this task for 2 hours by the time you finish lunch. I'll be driving for 10 hours at 6 tonight. In 4 hours, I'll be waiting here for 2 hours. This time next year, I'll be living in New York for 6 months. In 10 years, I will have retired for 5 years. When this project is finished, I will be working on it for 2 years. When I graduate, I will be studying English for 5 years. By the end of the month, they will have completed the project. When I retire, I will be working here for 10 years. When we sell our house, we will have owned it for 5 years. When I retire, I will be a doctor for 30 years. When the baby is born, they will be trying to get pregnant for a year. In 2 weeks I will be working at my new job for a month. By next year we will be living in our new home for 5 years. They'll be married for 12 years by 6 tonight. I will have finished all my homework by the end of the week. This time next year, I will have moved to a new city. I will have taken the driver's license test in 2 weeks and I hope I have passed the test. I will have finished all my Christmas shopping by Christmas. In a year I will be 18 years old and be able to vote. Next month, I will be working for this company for 3 years. By the time I'm 23, I'll have graduated from college. By the time the sun goes down, I'll have finished my work. By the time I'm 30, I will have traveled all 7 continents. I'll have eaten at every restaurant in town by the end of the year. 10 years from now, I'll have forgotten what it looked like. By the time I'm 35, I'll have made $1 million. When school is over, I will have read every book in the library. I will have watched every movie released next year. They will have finished their work by the time we arrive. We will be on our way for our vacation by noon tomorrow. I will have studied for my exam by Wednesday evening. I will have finished the project by 6 in the evening. At the end of the day, you will have finished your work. We'll be in London by noon. By the time we get there, they will have gone to the airport. I will have finished my project next week. The meeting will begin in 2 hours. I'll have cleaned my whole house by 6 tonight. I will be graduating from university in a year. I will have submitted my application by tomorrow. In 2 weeks the conference will be over. By the end of this month, I will have completed my education. I will retire in 5 years. I'll have prepared dinner when you arrive. I will have taken my driver's license exam in a month. We will be waiting for you for 2 hours when you arrive. Next year, I will be living in New York for 20 years. They will be married for 30 years in June. I will have finished my work tonight at 6 o'clock. They will have arrived in New York by noon tomorrow. We'll have had dinner by the time you arrive. You will have received your package by Wednesday. Examples. I will have finished my math homework by 6 tonight. This time next week, I will have taken my final exams. I will have completed my English homework in 2 hours. I will have finished all my shopping by the end of the year. In 5 years I will have graduated from university. In 10 years I will have retired from my job. By the end of the year, I will have read 100 books. In a month I will be working at my new job for 6 months. By the time you wake up, he'll have gone on vacation. By the time they arrive, we'll have cleaned the whole house. By the time I have to get up, my alarm will have gone off. He will have finished his exams by the end of the month. We will have sold all of our products by the end of the year. Examples. By this time next week, I will have completed my project. By the end of the month I will have made enough money. By the time I'm 30, I'll have traveled every continent. In 10 years I will have my dream job. I will retire in 20 years. When I die, I will have made a difference in the world. I will have lived a full life. I will have finished my homework tonight at 6 o'clock. By next week, I will have finished reading that book. In 10 years I will retire from my job. On Christmas Day, we'll be married for 5 years. By the end of next month I will have studied French for 4 years. I will have finished the project by 5 p.m. By this time next year I will be graduating from university. By 2025, I will be working at my current job for 10 years. My family will have lived in our current home for 20 years by 2030. By Monday morning, I will have finished reading the entire book. The future perfect tense is used to describe an event that will take place at a certain time in the future. Delivery will arrive by 6 this evening. By the time you get home, I will have finished my work. They will have completed the project by Monday. We will be moving into our new home next weekend. You will have finished your book by the end of the month. I will be starting my new job next week. He will have graduated from university by May. This time next year we will be on our vacation. He will retire by the end of the year. They will have arrived in London by now. We will be waiting for you for over an hour when you arrive. Next year, I'll be living in New York for 10 years. I will have read that book by the time you finish it. I will have finished my report by Monday. Next month I will be working at my current job for 5 years. In 10 years I will retire from my career. By 2025 I will have visited every continent. In 2 weeks I will be on this diet for 1 month. By the end of the year, I will have earned a black belt in karate. In 5 years, I will have saved enough money to buy my own house. In 10 years, I will have forgotten all the Spanish I learned in high school. In 20 years, I will have grandchildren. By the time you get home, I'll have prepared dinner. I will have finished my homework before you come home. When I'm 30, I'll have gone to Europe. Next month, I'll be working at my new job for a year. By the end of the year, I'll have saved enough to buy a new car. I will be married for 10 years until my husband retires. When I retire, I will be a teacher for 20 years. When my cat dies, I'll have it for 15 years. By the end of this year I will be living in my own house for 5 years. He'll be in New York by noon. We will have finished our exams this time next week. By the end of the semester, you will have learned all the materials. They will have moved into their new homes by the end of the month. I will have finished my homework at 6 o'clock. Next year we will be married for 10 years. After 5 years, I have completed my education and will be a qualified doctor. I will have finished my exams in 2 weeks. I will have completed my undergraduate degree. I will have finished my book. I will have cleaned the whole house. I will have prepared dinner for everyone. I'll be taking the dog for a walk. Examples. I will have finished my work by noon tomorrow. They'll be reserved for their vacation when we arrive. You will have received your package by Monday. He will have finished his book by the end of the month. He will be back from his trip by the end of the week. The conference will be over when we arrive. By the time we get there, the party will have started. By the end of next month I will be working here for 5 years. By the end of next year, we will be living in this house for 10 years. When they arrive, they will have been married for 15 years. By the time I graduate, I will be studying French for 6 years. When we leave, we will be planning this trip for 2 years. I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. We will be hoping for a better future for a long time. I will be wanting to see you for a long time. We will need a vacation for a long time. I've been wanting to tell you this for a long time. By the time I finish this sentence, I will be writing for 2 hours. By the time you finish reading this, I'll be writing for 3 hours. We'll be waiting for 2 hours when they arrive. When we get there, the party will be going on for an hour. When you wake up, I will be sleeping for 8 hours. When he arrives, I will be working for 6 hours. When finished, the game will have been running for 4 hours. When they leave, we'll be talking for an hour. The movie will be over in 2 hours when we get home. By the time you finish this, I'll be working for 10 hours. I'll be working for 4 hours by the time you're done. I'll be cooking for 2 hours by the time you get home. I'll be cleaning for an hour before you wake up. I'll be walking for half an hour until you come home. I'll be waiting for you for 15 minutes until you arrive. I'll be working on this project for a week by the time you see it. I'll be thinking of you for a long time when you come. I'll be wanting to see you for a long time until you come here. I will need a long break until you arrive. When you get here, I'll be hoping you'll be here for a long time. By the time they get here, they'll be driving for 2 hours. By the time they get home, they'll be walking for an hour. They'll be waiting for half an hour when we arrive. They'll be working for an hour by the time we get there. They will be talking for a while until we leave. They will have been planning this for a long time until this happens. They will be wanting this for a long time until it finally happens. They will have long hoped for a better future. They've been waiting for this moment for a long time. They'll be hoping for this moment for a long time. By the time he comes, we will have cleaned the house. By the time you arrive, we will have finished our work. He will have gone to school by the time I wake up. We will have finished our project by the end of the week. They will have moved into their new home next month. By the end of the year, I will be 18 years old. By the age of 22, you will have graduated from college. He will retire when he turns 65. By the time we get home, the rain will have stopped. The sun will have risen when we start our walk. By the time you get here, the party will be over. We will have finished our reports by Monday. I will have graduated from university by next May. At the end of the month, we will have moved into our new home. They will have gone on vacation by the time we get back from the trip. Next month, I'll be working here for 5 years. By the end of the month, they will have completed their research. By the age of 30, he will have traveled every continent. By the time I turn 21, I will have graduated from university. They will be married for 10 years by the end of the year. We will be the owner of our house for 5 years until the summer. When the baby is born, she will have been trying to get pregnant for 2 years. In May, I will be working at my current job for 3 years. By the time I'm 50, I'll have run a marathon in every state. I will be working on this project for 2 weeks until you return. By the age of 25, he will have finished his diploma. We will be moving into our new home next month. By the time we return, they will be on their journey. Next week, she will be studying English for 6 months. We will be living in this house for 2 years by the end of the year. I'll be driving for 5 years when I get my license. By the time he graduates, he will have been playing the piano for 8 years. He will have been writing for 4 years when he publishes his first book. When they move to Los Angeles, they will have been living in New York for 6 years. I will have finished the reports by 5 o'clock. He'll be working here for 10 years next month. We'll be waiting for 2 hours until they come. When I graduate, I will be studying English for 6 years. Next year they will be married for 15 years. By her senior year, she will have been taking piano lessons for 5 years. They will have been living in New York for 8 years until they have a baby. Next month we will be friends for 10 years. By the time I turn 30, I will have finished my diploma. In 2 hours, I'll be driving for 6 hours. When the sun comes up, I'll be walking for 4 hours. I'll be waiting for you for 2 hours until you arrive. When this project is finished, I will be working on this project for 2 years. I will be living in this city for 2 years by next month. He will have gone to America when we arrive. We will have completed our mission before you return. Until then, I won't have forgotten your birthday. Will you have learned all the words by the end of the week? Next June I will be living in Paris for 2 years. Next Saturday, I'll be working here for a year. How long will you be waiting when I arrive? They will have arrived in London by noon. I will be working on this project for 2 weeks until you get here. I will have finished my reports by next Wednesday. By the end of the year, I will be living in this city for 10 years. By the time I finish this sentence, I will have written 50 examples of future perfect tense sentences. Examples. I will have finished my homework before you come home. Tonight at 6, we've been married for 10 years. They will have arrived in New York by now. In June I will be working here for 5 years. We will have finished the construction of the house by the end of next month. The flowers will be in bloom next week. By the end of the summer, I will be 18 years old. The baby will be born by the time you get here. I will be graduating from university next year. By the time you finish reading this, I'll be long gone. We've been married for 10 years tonight at 6. The flowers will be in bloom next week. By the end of the summer, I will be 18 years old. I'll be gone in an hour. I will have finished my homework before you get home. In 10 years, we will be married for 10 years. By this time tomorrow they will have arrived in New York. In 5 years, I will be working here for 5 years. We will have finished the construction of the house next month. The flowers will be in bloom next week. I will be 18 years old next summer. The baby will be born when you get here. A year from now, I will have graduated from university. I'll be gone in an hour. 10 years from now, we will be married for 10 years. By this time tomorrow they will have arrived in New York. 5 years from now, I'll be working here for 5 years. I will have finished my degree by the end of next year. We'll have a decision by Monday. In June I will be working here for 10 years. In January we will have known each other for 5 years. Next month I will be living in this city for 2 years. By the age of 20 he will have been playing the piano for 15 years. When he turns 30, he will be a doctor for 5 years. Next month we will be doing business together for 10 years. By the time I'm 30, I'll be writing for 20 years. Next year, I will have completed my degree. Next month we will be living in this house for 5 years. By the end of this year, I will be studying French for 6 years. Next week, I will be working on this project for 2 months. At the end of next month, I will be studying at this school for 3 years. In a year, I will be working as a doctor for 5 years. In 5 years, I will be living in this city for 10 years. They will have arrived in Boston by now. I will have read the book by Monday. By the end of next year I will be working here for 10 years. They will be married for 25 years by Christmas. We'll be living in London for 6 months when the baby is born. They will be waiting for over an hour until the bus comes. When I finish high school, I will be studying French for 4 years. We will be in Australia for a year until next February. Examples. By the time I turn 25, I will have completed my diploma. Next year I will be working at my current job for 10 years. They will have finished the construction of the new bridge by the end of the month. We will be moving into our new home by the end of the week. By the end of the year I will have learned to play the guitar. He will have graduated from high school when he turns 18. He will retire when he turns 65. They will be married for 20 years by the end of the year. By the end of 2020, we will be living in our new city for 5 years. By the end of this month, I will be working at my current job for 3 years. By the end of the year, I will be working at my current job for 4 years. By the end of the year they will have finished the construction of the new bridge. By the end of next month we will be moving into our new home. By the end of the summer, I will have learned to play the guitar. By the time he turns 18, he will be going to college for 2 years. He will retire when he turns 70. They will be married for 25 years by the end of the year. By the end of 2025, we will be living in our new city for 10 years. By the end of this month, I will have been working at my current job for 8 years. By the end of the year, I will have been working at my current job for 9 years. By the end of the month they will have finished the construction of the new bridge. We will be moving into our new home by the end of next week. By the time he turns 18, he will be going to college for 3 years. He will retire when he turns 75. They will be married for 30 years by the end of the year. By the end of 2030, we will be living in our new city for 15 years. By the end of this month, I will have been working at my current job for 13 years. By the end of the year, I will have been working at my current job for 14 years. By the time he turns 18, he will be going to college for 4 years. He will retire when he turns 80. They will be married for 35 years by the end of the year. By the end of 2035, we will be living in our new city for 20 years. By the end of this month, I will have been working at my current job for 18 years. By the end of the year, I will have been working at my current job for 19 years. By the time he turns 18, he will be going to college for 5 years. He will retire at the age of 85. They will be married for 40 years by the end of the year. By the end of 2040, we will be living in our new city for 25 years. By the end of this month, I will have been working at my current job for 23 years. By the end of the year, I will have been working at my current job for 24 years. We will arrive in London before noon. You'll have seen the movie by the time I get there. By the time their families get home, they will have tidied the house. When I finish my presentation, the delivery of my project will be complete. I'll be working on this project for 2 weeks when I'm finished. We will have finished our new house next year. When the sun comes up, we'll be reserved for our trip. They will have arrived at the party before us. We'll have finished before lunch. I will have made all the necessary arrangements before you arrive. When the conference starts, everything will be set. We will have completed our project by the end of the week. They will be in bed by the time we get home. We will have finished the project by Monday. They will be married for 20 years in June. By the time you get here, she will have delivered the baby. Next year, I will be living in New York for 5 years. They will be in Australia for 6 months when their visa expires. By the time you arrive, I will have completed the task. I'll be working here for 5 years next week. In June we will have known each other for 8 years. By the end of this year he will have been living in Paris for 6 months. By the time we get there they will have finished the job. By the time you finish school, you will have been studying French for 4 years. When you finally arrive, we will be waiting for you for a long time. We will have finished our house by the end of the year. The project will be completed when you arrive. I will have breakfast by 7. At 6 this evening, he will be on his way to the airport. When they sell it, they will have been living in that house for 2 years. I'll be driving for 10 hours before I reach my destination. When his recital is over, he will be playing the piano for 2 hours. The baby will have been sleeping for 6 hours by the time he wakes up. I will have been writing for 2 years when this book is published. Next month I will be studying English for 6 years. They will be married for 2 weeks by Monday. By the end of this month I will be living in New York for 5 years. By the end of the year, I will be taking piano lessons for 8 years. When he leaves, he will have been working for the company for 3 years. When we finally leave, we'll be planning our trip for months. When they get married, they will be dating for a year. We will have finished the project by the end of the week. In June, they will be married for 15 years. By the time you cross the finish line, I'll have run the marathon. I will be starting my new job at the beginning of next month. By the end of the year, they will have finished remodeling their home. Next month, I will have finished my degree. When I retire, I will be working for the company for 5 years. In 10 years, I will have traveled every continent. By the end of the year, I will have run a marathon. When I retire, I will have worked here for 35 years. When he gets home from work, he will have prepared dinner. By the end of this month I will have been at my job for 2 years. He'll be studying for his exam for weeks when he finally arrives. I'll be saving for my new car for months until I finally have enough money. By the end of this year, they will be married for 10 years. When we finally leave, we will be planning our vacation for months. I'll be working on this project for weeks until it's due. We will have finished our lunch by 1 a.m. The conference will start at 9 a.m. I will have finished the task by 5 p.m. I will be working on this project for 2 weeks until next Friday. By this time next year, I will have finished my degree. In 10 years I will retire from my job. I will have finished reading that book by the end of the week. They'll be married for 10 years by next Monday. We will have seen that movie twice when it comes out of theaters. They will have finished the project before the end of the month. By the time I turn 30, I will have received my diploma. By next week, he will have learned all the material for his test. By the end of the year, we will have traveled to every continent. He will have read the entire series by the time the last book comes out. By the time you get home they will have finished painting the house. They will have finished their meal by the time we arrive. We will be married for 15 years in June. They'll be waiting for us for over an hour when we get there. They'll be gone before we arrive. They will have finished their meal by the time we arrive. In June we will have known each other for 15 years. By the time I'm 25, I'll have graduated from college. Next year they will have built a new school. I will have finished my work by 6 o'clock in the evening. I will have finished reading the book by Monday. Students will have taken their final exams by the end of the week. By this time next year I will be graduating from university. When I'm 30, my parents will be retired. My sister will be married when she turns 25. By the time I turn 40, I will have traveled to all 50 states. I'll be working for 2 hours until you come. We'll be waiting for an hour until he comes. They will have completed the project by next week. By then I will have turned 18. Next month we will have known each other for 15 years. They will be living in their new home for a year next month. Next month I will be driving for 20 years. Next month he will be playing the piano for 25 years. Next month he will be working as a doctor for 30 years. Next month we will be living in our new home for 5 years. I will have finished my book by the end of the month. They will have watched the movie by the time you get home. We'll have cleaned the house by the time your family arrives. I will have finished my project by Monday. I will have finished reading War and Peace by 6 tonight. In 2 hours, I'll have taken my dog for a walk, done the grocery shopping, and prepared dinner. By the end of the year, I will have traveled all 7 continents. By this time next year I will have completed my education. By then they will have been married for 10 years. We will have finished the project before the given date. By the end of the course you will have learned all the materials. By July, they will be living in their new home for 6 months. My project will be delivered 2 weeks from now. By June I will be at my job for a year. We will be married for 10 years next month. In January, they will have been living in their home for 5 years. We'll be waiting for over an hour until they arrive. Next month, I will be working on this project for 2 years.